Have you ever watched a show that has made you question reality? You know, the kind that leaves your eyes glued to the screen, making you question whether you are still in the real world. Well, today's video is bound to do that to you because all the animated series that are mentioned in our list have challenged the very notion of logic, playing with visuals, non-linear storytelling, and bizarre narratives, and also add to this deep philosophical themes which can pretty much mess with the viewer's head. Mind you, all of the ones mentioned in the list are way more than just cartoons. And with that being said, let's take a dive into 15 of the trippiest animated series ever made. But before we get into our explanation, we do have one very small request. If you enjoy our content, then please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Now let's begin. No! Rick and Morty, 2013 to present. A creation of Justin Roiland and Dan Harmon, this Adult Swim animated sitcom follows the misadventures of the brilliant but alcoholic mad scientist Rick Sanchez and his good-hearted but easily traumatized grandson, Morty Smith. Their escapades usually span across infinite realities, fusing domestic family life with interdimensional space travels and barely surviving what is fitting to be addressed as increasingly nihilistic misadventures. However, beneath the multiversal mayhem and ridiculous levels of ludicrousness lies a show that has each episode introducing mind-bending sci-fi concepts such as time loops, parallel reality, and simulation theory, only to end up methodically dismantling them with brutal cynicism and, dare we disregard, absurd humor. As a show, Rick and Morty mocks traditional storytelling structures, constantly reminding its characters, as well as us viewers, that free will is nothing but an illusion at the end of the day, and that even the most profound moments will be scaled down to yet another sardonic punchline. While there is no denying that Rick and Morty is filled with profound moments, a superb example of a profound moment being reduced to a sarcastic punchline lies in The Old Man and the Seat, the second episode of the 4th season. Do you call yourself a true fan of the animated series? Well, in that case, you know exactly what we hinted at. Bojack Horseman, 2014 to 2020. Please do not make the mistake of considering Raphael Bob Waksberg's animated comedy series as a cartoon for adults featuring poor drawings, because that is clearly not what Bojack Horseman is. When you start watching it, the show might give you the feel of a typical adult animated comedy, but soon you will find it dissolving the very line between existential hopelessness and absurdist humor. Truth be told, who would have ever thought that a cartoon about anthropomorphic animals would actually find its way of portraying depression and mental illness? In terms of the storyline, it is primarily set in Hollywood and revolves around the titular anthropomorphic horse who was once the star of a 90s sitcom. Currently lost in a sea of self-loathing and booze, Bojack wishes to regain his dignity and decides that it is time for a comeback. Bojack Horseman bends reality in ways that feel a tad too real. The show categorically proves that animation does not have to be restricted by narrative conventions. Truly unique and every bit riveting, the episodes on display do not sugarcoat themselves when it comes to depicting heavy themes, nor do they offer simple solutions at the end. Here, comedy becomes existential horror, and while the world of Bojack Horseman may be ridiculous, it is conclusively one of the most reflective and clever animated series that the television industry has on offer. Common Side Effects, 2025 to present. Adult Swim's newest entry, one that happens to be a creation of Joseph Bennett and Steve Helly, is another show where the fabric of reality frays at the edges, and where absurdist horror, satire, and pure animated chaos collide with each other. The series revolves around two former high school friends, Marshall and Francis, who, after reconnecting with each other, stumble upon a mushroom, and not just any, but literally the ghost orchid of mushrooms, capable of miraculously healing almost anything. The solitary fact that the glimmering blue mushroom can alter the whole world and single-handedly crumble the entire pharmaceutical industry leads everyone in power to want to suppress all knowledge of the said drug and even go to extents to destroy it. Packed to the brim with big ideas, interesting characters, and a genuinely gripping narrative, Common Side Effects is a series that draws you in right from the beginning, making you feel like you are also slipping into the same conspiracy as our main characters. Mind you, there are actual stakes here. Things do not reset at the end of the episode, and as far as the action that is featured here, it isn't ridiculous or, say, unbelievable just because it is animated. The show mirrors society clearly, exhibiting the very ugliness of powerful systems via brilliant twists and subplots. From the bang-on voice acting and unique animation to its clever writing, you are pretty much looking at a show designed to leave an impression on you, leaving you excited for what the next episode has in store for you. So, who else has started watching Common Side Effects? Do you find it incredibly entertaining as much as we do? Please do let us know know in the comments section below. The Midnight Gospel 2020. What we are looking at does not come under the category of a typical animated show. It is more like a podcast that is turned into a psychedelic odyssey about consciousness and death. Sounds fascinating, right? Well, that is the magic of co-creators Pendleton Ward and Duncan Trussell. Story-wise, The Midnight Gospel centers on the space caster Clancy Gilroy, who lives on a membranous, tape-like planet known as the Chromatic Ribbon. Clancy possesses an unlicensed multiverse simulator via which he travels through strange worlds that are on the cusp of collapse to interview the inhabitants for his Spacecast, exploring existential questions about life, death, and everything in between. In case you did not know, the interviews are directly taken from Trussell's real-life podcast, The Duncan Trussell Family Hour. Also, each of the episodes on display ends with some kind of cataclysmic event that has Clancy barely managing to escape from there. Truth be told, The Midnight Gospel works as a show that asks you to surrender to its world, and strangely, you find yourself doing that. You tend to get lost, and you end up finding meaning in the madness. Also, after a point, you stop searching for meaning in the traditional sense. The incredible animation on display itself makes it worth watching every episode at least twice. While many fans have stated that their experiences were more like an acid trip, or let's say a drug trip to be more precise, we'd love to hear your thoughts about the series. In case you have not watched it, please hurry up and come, share your experience with us. Smiling Friends 2022. Zach Hadel and Michael Cusack's Australian-American adult animated TV series revolves around the surreal misadventures of two employees working at a charitable company committed to bringing its clients joy and happiness. But then again, mark our words when we say that this show here is so much more than just that. The series' main protagonists happen to be the jaded and skeptical Charlie and the endlessly optimistic Pim, and the duo's attempts to cheer and comfort the troubled ones often end up in utter disaster. Smiling Friends toys with expectations at every turn by hurling its characters into absolutely crazy situations. It is only fair to state that the series is overflowing with unstable narratives with a complete disregard for reality. For example, the show features an episode that begins with a clear-cut story only to end in some kind of hyper-realistic, gross, nightmare sequence. Basically, the humor on display shifts between surreal absurdity, dry awkwardness, and full-blown horror without any warning. However, despite its absurd humor and surrealism, there is something about Smiling Friends that makes it weirdly wholesome. The show, not for once, mocks the idea of kindness, thereby showcasing that absurdity and sincerity can both exist in the same space. Courage, the Cowardly Dog, 1999 to 2002. Initially created as a 7-minute animated short known as The Chicken from Outer Space, creator John R. Dilworth first introduced the character of Courage back in the year 1996. With the segment nominated for an Academy Award, it ultimately caught the attention of Cartoon Network, and the rest, as you all know, is history. Spanning across 4 seasons, each consisting of 13 exhilarating episodes, this top-rated animated comedy horror TV series follows the titular anthropomorphic dog living with an elderly couple in a farmhouse in the fictional town of Nowhere in Kansas. Every episode has the trio thrown into exceedingly freakish and unsettling paranormal situations, and it is always up to Courage to save the day. If you ask us, part of what made Courage the Cowardly Dog's horror slapstick work was undoubtedly the sheer anarchy on display. For instance, Dilworth's animated show was never what you thought it would be, and because of that, the series efficaciously managed to blend both elements of dread and comedy in a way that wasn't just exclusive, but also quite surprising. Primarily known for its subversive visual horror, perfect black humor, and, dare we disregard the horde of some of the most petrifying, horror-striking villains, Courage the Cowardly Dog still manages to hold up well today. Undone, 2019. Kate Purdy and Raphael Bob Waxberg's Undone explores the elastic nature of reality through its main character, Alma. Post-narrowly surviving a fatal car accident, Alma develops the ability to manipulate and move through time. She uses her newfound powers to visit past memories and move through time to learn the truth about her father's death. First things first, Undone is beautiful, bold, and different, and there are no second thoughts about it. Many of you may not know this, but the show is actually based around co-creator Kate Purdy's life, especially when she was growing up in Guadalajara, Mexico. Apparently, Purdy was into shamanistic medicine around that time, something that eventually led her to developing a show idea based around that. Undone resorts to using rotoscope animation to bend time and reality, while simultaneously letting its characters drift through past traumas, hallucinations, and alternate timelines with seamless fluidity. With a compelling storyline and strongly written characters, Undone is an aesthetically trippy, ethereal, cerebral journey, giving its viewers an out-of-this-world experience. Beetlejuice, 1989 to 1991. You will be surprised to learn that there are plenty of 80s movies that actually inspired cartoons, and Beetlejuice is certainly one of them. Developed by Tim Burton, who, mind you, also served as the director of the 1988 movie, the animated TV series follows the adventures of goth girl Lydia Dietz and Beetlejuice, her undead friend, or should we say frenemy in this case, exploring the supernaturalistic realm of Neitherworld. Given the show's strong teleplay, the ideal cast of voice actors, and their splendid performances, Beetlejuice effectively manages to capture the true essence of the original flick with its wacky, out-of-the-ordinary humor, while simultaneously adding its own unique twist to the story. To begin with, the show's animation is superb, so much so that it literally brings the characters to life. Not only is the dynamic between Lydia and Beetlejuice comical, but it is also moving at the same time. Many episodes, especially towards the end of the run, are spoofs of popular movies, TV shows, and books. In fact, you will be thoroughly taken aback to learn that the 7th episode of the 3rd season, which was titled Brides of Funkenstein, was in reality based on an idea put forward by a teenage girl who was simply a fan of the show. Please know that Beetlejuice also relies a little too much on puns, visual gags, and elusiveness, and if you ask us, it is certainly a more worthy successor to the movie. Assy McGee, 2006 to 2008. Created by Matt Harrigan and Carl W. Adams, the series features the titular character as an ultra-violent and emotionally disturbed police detective, one who appears in the form of a walking pair of buttocks, or should we say, a male ass? Sorry for our language as well as the explicit description, but believe us when we say this, that there is simply no other way to put it. And those of you who have had the chance to see Assy McGee will also agree with us. Anyway, the series is set in a world that simply refuses to accept the madness of its own premise. After all, who would have ever thought that a TV show would actually feature a cop as a pair of buttocks with legs, a gun, and a badge? While the ludicrous protagonist categorically makes Assy McGee mind-bending, it's the awful one-liners that are the high points of the series. Of course, you have to be a certain age to appreciate this over-the-top madness, but then again, Assy McGee is also for anybody who loves 80s action movies and comprehends the humor of that era. The artwork and animation fit very well, especially the facial expressions of our titular character, which in this case happens to be butt-cheek expressions. Also, special mention to episodes titled Conviction, Ring of Fire, and Irish Wake. Please watch them if you have access to the Adult Swim comedies.
Remain calm, but he knew this chance might never come again.
The Shivering Truth, 2018 to 2020. Vernon Chapman's The Shivering Truth happens to be a delicately made, darkly surreal stop-motion animated anthology, which is unlike anything else one has seen on television. For starters, it is not for everyone, and as much as it can be depressing and twisted, it is also highly unconventional, unsettling, and undeniably creative. Boasting a total of 13 episodes across 2 seasons, The Shivering Truth is a series of surreal vignettes exploring existential dread, fear, and guilt like some kind of a disjointed fever dream. Nothing can quite prepare you for the show when you start watching it, and the horror on display feels a tad too real to process. Having said that, when it comes to the horror, we are pointing at the horror of losing control over reality, and not the typical monster horror stuff. Also, add to this the horror of deep, disturbing anxieties that somehow make their way into our minds after an episode ends. Of course, there is plenty of body horror, which might disgust many, but The Shivering Truth is by far one of the most daring, one-of-a-kind TV productions in a very long time. Superjail, 2007 to 2014. This colorful, hyper-detailed animated world overflowing with futuristic technology and exaggerated characters is a creation of Christy Caracas, Ben Gruber, and Stephen Warbeck. While the show might not make sense to you, which is absolutely alright, it is bound to melt your brain, and we can guarantee you that. Story-wise, the events of Superjail take place inside the eponymous large maximum security prison. This unusual prison, which is located in an alternate dimension known as 5612, is overseen by the eccentric sadist Warden, who has plenty of shape-shifting powers at his disposal, which he often resorts to in order to satiate his endless whims. Like any other Adult Swim show, it will take the viewer an episode or two to at least grasp what is happening and have a fair idea of what the show is about at the end of the day. You see, every episode of Superjail happens to be a visual overdose, and while the fast-paced, unexplained plotline seems to swing wildly from one point to another, the humor is bang on point. Next comes the imaginative imagery, or should we say, some epic level of animation, which is indisputably the high point of this adult animated TV series here. As a show that focuses on the exploits of an insane prison warden who looks more like a hybrid of Willy Wonka and Mad Hatter, Superjail has successfully established a very loyal fanbase. Aeon Flux, 1991 to 1995. What originally began as a series of short films for MTV soon developed a massive cult following, especially for its minimalist dialogues, exceptional art style, and philosophical themes. We are talking about Peter Chung's avant-garde sci-fi adventure animated TV series, which revolves around the enigmatic secret agent Aeon Flux, who belongs from the city-state of Monica. While her motives and background in particular remain unexplained, so do those of her sworn enemy and sometimes lover, Trevor Goodchild, with whom she seems to be caught in an endless, recurring conflict. Given Aeon Flux's cryptic storytelling and non-linear narratives, it is fair to admit that this animated TV series pushed all the boundaries in terms of storytelling for a sci-fi animated show, from featuring episodes that end abruptly to having characters dying only to return without explanation. The show trusts its viewers to put the very pieces together and also accepts at the same time that there will always be some questions that will never have answers. The slick animation featuring amazing visuals makes Aeon Flux uncompromising, completely engaging, and a mind-bending series at the end of the day. Mr. Pickles, 2014 to 2019. Will Carsola and Dave Stewart's adult animated horror comedy slasher series centers on the Goodman family, especially their lovable border collie, the eponymous Mr. Pickles. However, unbeknownst to others, Mr. Pickles is a deviant pooch with a secret satanic streak. He simply loves to slaughter people in what seems to be an increasingly elaborate and grotesque fashion. Well, there are very few shows out there that embrace chaos like Mr. Pickles. Given the show's excessively gory nature, it goes without saying that Mr. Pickles shines in terms of how well it handles the disgustingly gory acts. Not once does the concept of violence depicted here feel like it is rushed or, say, out of place. In fact, there comes a time when the horror becomes so extreme that it tends to become normal within the show's confined universe. So, if you are planning to watch Mr. Pickles, do not go looking for a storyline. Give this a shot for the demon dog, and you will be in for a good time. Xavier, Renegade Angel, 2007 to 2009. Vernon Chapman and John Lee's Xavier, Renegade Angel follows the oblivious adventures of Xavier, the strange-looking, fawn-like shaman wanderer who travels across the land to find out the truth about his mysterious origin. The show has Xavier landing himself in situations that are mostly a result of his absurd incompetence and inability to reason. Xavier, Renegade Angel operates in a world where the concept of logic is optional and meaning is constantly slipping through your fingers, and yet the show happens to be a breath of fresh air that is bound to bring together all warped minds. The attention to detail takes this series notches higher, placing it in the category of shows that have had a lot of thought and care invested in it. The solitary fact that it is capable of moving dramatically in almost unexpected directions often makes you question if you are actually watching something brilliant or something utterly unhinged.
Run to the store!
Adventure Time, 2010 to 2018. A creation of Pendleton Ward, the series follows the surreal adventures of a boy named Finn and his best friend Jake, who happens to be a talking yellow dog, possessing the power to alter size and shape at will. In case you did not know this, the series is actually based on Ward's 2007 animated short film, also titled Adventure Time. With the short becoming a huge hit, a full-length series was commissioned, and it eventually became the longest-running Cartoon Network show, featuring a total of 10 seasons. Even for a kids show, Adventure Time has surprisingly mature and deep themes, something that points out the amount of thought and imagination that has been put into this show. From characters that are diverse, unique, and believable, to great writing, amazing story arcs, fanciful settings, captivating animation, and marvelous voice acting, Adventure Time tends to get better and better the more you watch it. One obviously has no reason not to like this highly inventive and timeless masterpiece here. Marvelous verdict. Well, with this, we finally come to the end of our video here. So, what are your thoughts about these trippy animated series? Did your favorite one make it to our list? We would honestly love to know what you feel, as in which amongst the mentioned ones messes completely with your head. Now, if you enjoy this video, you know what to do. Please do leave a thumbs up and stay tuned with us as we promise to come back with more exciting content. Till then, goodbye, and thanks for watching. Have a nice one.